Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Leaders in Supply Chain podcast. I am your host, Radu Palamariu, Managing Director of Elcat Global.
And I'm delighted to have with us today Alexandre Baubert, who is the Chief Supply Chain Officer of Signify. Signify, as many of you know, is a Dutch multinational lighting corporation. They are the global leaders in the manufacturing of electric lights, light fixtures, control systems for consumers, professionals, as well as for the Internet of Things. So, Alexandre, pleasure to have you with us today. Thanks for making the time and welcome.
Hey, thanks, and great to be with you, Radu. Delighted, I think that's the word today, delighted. And thanks for the energy that you put on the supply chain function globally. I think you are a catalyst. So thanks for hosting this podcast.
My pleasure. So maybe first, let's start with yourself and how did you end up in supply chain in the first place? And perhaps what was one inflection point of your career, Alexandre? And let's start there.
Look, I'm a electrical engineer by trade, and then I decided to do some space science. So I'm a bit of a rocket scientist by my trade, but I happened to have an opportunity to join a company called Schlumberger. It was complete luck. If you want to know, it happened in London in an elevator, but the story stays in the elevator. But anyway, that started there, and I got the opportunity to start in New York in a company that I didn't know at that time had nothing to do with space and far away, but it had to do with deep in the ground oil and gas. And I stayed there for 20 years, believe it or not, an amazing journey. Super international, and at that time, supply chain was in its infancy. Oil and gas, huge, margin investment asset type of industry, and they didn't need a super professional supply chain in decades before. But then we started to create, as the market and the condition, the industry started to commoditize. The pressure on cost, the pressure on cash, the pressure on velocity came in. And I participated to the building of a very strong supply chain for 20 years. We did everything from procurement, centralization, sourcing, category management. I've been in the field in Scotland, in Angola, in Texas. So a fun career where I explored every facet of the supply chain, from very operational down to earth, close to manufacturing, close to what we call the field, and then into central transformation. So fascinating. I'm a science guy, so I love science, data, analytics, and I think that's what has driven me over the years at Schlumberger. So that's the first 20 years. And you ask about an inflection point. Back in 2019 is when basically I turned 20 years, and when you are at the top, you are really thinking about your purpose, of course, the values and what drives you into the next chapter. And then I also have kids. They start to grow, and they start to ask questions. Hey, Dad, what's your industry that you're in? What has to do with sustainability and so on? So really a thinking of my next move will be with a company that has at the heart of the DNA purpose related to sustainability. And that's where I ended up with Signify, which is a spin-off of Philips. It's about $8 billion company. And I'm heading the fund of the supply chain. That's about me and the turning points, Radu.
That's fascinating, and maybe to give you an interesting sharing. When I graduated, Schlumberger. So I graduated in 2008, and Schlumberger was in my school in Romania, one of the top employers. And they would I was part of a students' organization, and they would always sponsor it. And I thought the lifestyle of Schlumberger was the best. Like they would send you to they also offered me an internship. They would send you to the most freakiest places in the world, like you said, the far corners, and what an adventure it seemed. So I think
it's not for everyone.
It's not.
And that's when you are young, you look for that. Yes.
I'll double click on one specific point, because you're literally a rocket scientist. So when you before Schlumberger, so I'll just dig a little bit deeper. So when older in your history, and so when you made that decision, so you're an electrical engineer, rocket scientist, you were into satellites, antennas.
Yeah.
How did you actually end up doing supply chain? Like, we wrote the book Source to Soul. It seems like you're one of the many exponents of ending up in supply chain by chance somehow, there was no such thing as a bachelor of supply chain, right? So it's a little bit on that.
No. So spot on. I will not tell you what happened in that elevator in London, but I got the opportunity to join Schlumberger in New York in the IT domain. So I entered into I would say the digital IT space, and very rapidly the CPO at the time found that I was pretty agile with number data. There was eProc. You may remember in 99, 2000, that's where the era of the e-commerce startup starts to boom. It's Commerce One, Ariba, all of those companies start to emerge. And Schlumberger is electing to go with one of those partners, and you need a bit of geeks and techies. And I'm a very structured process guy. And he said, okay, now you're going to be my process improvement and my right-hand guy to do some spend analytics. And suddenly, I got into the ears and eyes of the CPO at that time, which was the ex-CFO of the company, so a very well-positioned person. And that's where everything started. So really from the digital techie space and then into the real world of supply chain.
Love it. So moving to the next segment now on the business front, you mentioned the sustainability angle. We got a lot of questions from the audience on the sustainability front. Let's start with that. So Signify lighting in general is a key core part of whether it's buildings or whatever it might be, which can link directly to sustainability and saving energy. How are you thinking from a supply chain angle as the leader of the supply chain of Signify around that and the sustainability angle of Signify?
Yeah, look, first of all, as when I joined, I thought a bulb, is a simple thing to manufacture, to sell. But as a matter of fact, first of all, you have a huge number of revenue stream. It's light is everywhere, from the simple consumer bulbs that you and me buy, and we transition into LED, and we buy that for a house, and I'm sure you do. But there's also a lot of other elements of revenue streams, like, we grow agriculture, we are helping to grow fish, we do stadiums, cars. I mean, light is in, and we'll talk maybe about connectivity later on, but light has an unbelievable number of facets and revenue stream, even well-being now. So light is an element of comfort for most of us, and is almost a treatment for some of us. So the magnitude of revenue streams is unbelievable. I could summarize it in just for simplicity perspective into three main channels. We have the consumer channel, so typically direct to consumer or through distributors. We have a OEM channel that is mainly for brands and still high volume. And we have what we call a professional channel, which is for installers, big projects, the Real Madrid, stadium, the Stade de France, the Atletico Madrid. We do all of those big, huge events. And, being a supply chain guy, you have three different archetypes. Basically, you have MTS, high volume flow, you have MTO, make to order, a bit of customization, and you have a lot of ETOs, engineer to orders type of archetypes. So that's how I look at it. Each channel has a different characteristic, a different way to serve the customers, and we need to be obviously ready for that. You don't need distribution centers for your MTO business. It goes straight from factories to customers. So that's how I think about it. I have actually three main supply chains serving those three channels, if it makes sense. Yeah.
From the angle of you applying sustainability in your supply chain and trying to, all the companies have a lot of goals, some more aggressive than others. There's also, unfortunately, a lot of greenwashing going around. I just shared something on anyways, let's not name them. I think I've done it damage, but on a chemicals company said that they're recycling something, but it turned out, I don't necessarily think that it was their fault, but it was their fault that they didn't track what is going on with the shoes and to make sure that they recycled and not ending up in a secondary market somewhere. So on that note, in Signify, when you look at making your whole supply chains from the end-to-end perspective more sustainable, what do you look at and what's your main focus?
I have to say the company is carbon neutral since 2020, and it's not greenwashing and so on. This has been part of the purpose of the company for decades. We sell lighting to save energy to our customers, And we obviously applied that to us. Initially, we manufacture products in the most sustainable way possible, and we tackle all the elements of sustainability. I think the key is that we started a long time ago. It's not anymore something that is pushed down, that you see where some boards are declaring an intent to be, but they have not put the mechanism to reach that ambition. Here at Signify, I have to say, I was really impressed. We live and breathe with sustainability. In the manufacturing, there's lots of, initiative. I could list a few, which is obviously on the energy, which is a big topic recently on, reducing the reliance of any natural gas or oil-intensive processes. Looking at putting solar panels on all of our factories. We're doing that also. We're looking at it for DCs, reducing waste. We have a lot of initiative on circularity, and we have many plants that have reached the zero waste to landfill ambition. We also look from a packaging design perspective. Our engineering and innovation teams, they design for, of course, manufacturability, supply chain ability, but also sustainability. So we launched a new packaging out last year, which is a major step change. When you're a consumer, when you go to the shop and the product itself is carbon neutral, and when you buy it, you have the feeling that you are doing an impact to the society, that's very, very important. So I've come across a couple of companies that wanted to know how we did it. Where are we on that trajectory? And I can tell you the big difference is we live it. It's not just a declaration and targets. We passed that stage. In our supply chain, we think container optimizations, air freight is basically banned. We only look at ocean and road. We look at every other possible alternatives to avoid CO2 emissions. So we're not perfect yet, but we are on a track which is impressive, I would say. Now, Scope 3 is the biggest challenge. Scope 1 and 2 are well on track, but Scope 3, we have an extremely strong procurement organization that has all of the ratings as part of the supplier selections, and we are recognized for that as well. But I think that's the biggest challenge ahead of us, is now to tackle the Scope 3 by 2025.
Now, on the topic of connectivity,
yes.
And I know that Signify, and I was shocked, positively shocked. Share with you offline. I'll share with the audience the video about the potential and the developments that Signify is working on to literally have internet via light. So you call it LiFi. Tell us a little bit about that.
Look, I was amazed as well. I think we know Wi-Fi, hi-fi, high fidelity, but LiFi was a new concept that came up just before the 2018 started to make some noise. It's basically, LiFi is a high-speed, bi-directional wireless communication of data using the spectrum of light. And you can imagine that the bulb that you have at home or the bulb that you see in the street is a network, is a node of a network that communicates, and you have photons that are emitted by that lamp and through semiconductor, the LED technology. And basically, through the changing of the flow of that light, you can transmit data with high speed. And what are the advantages? It's extremely secured, extremely high speed, and it has application in airlines, in military, in any mobility like bus or cars. And you can think it's very close to the IoT concept. So it's just a different wavelength. And I know that Lateco Air, who makes seats in airlines, have launched a pilot. They had I think Paris, Toulouse. They hosted something like 50 gamers for high-speed competition. A competition in an airplane on games with high-speed connectivity. And you can imagine the light on top of your head in the seat is secured. It's a beam that is just for you with high speed. And why airlines love it? It's because less cables, less weight, all is transmitted by light. So that's just the beginning. There's many more applications. I would be happy to share some further videos or things that are starting to fly out there. But that's an amazing opportunity. Can you imagine the light is a node of a network? So that's you just change your light and you're on a new network.
It's incredible. I mean, I'll probably never think of a flashlight like a flashlight ever again. so Beam Me Scotty takes on a whole new meaning all of a sudden.
But there's many other things for there's a Euroshop event just now on going on, and light is a big thing when you are in the consumer business, in the brands, and light is also a way to. I visited the Innovation Center of SAP not so long ago, and they are using our technology to actually monitor how you take a product out of the shelf, how long you keep it, which one you pick. So you have data being acquired by light when you are a consumer in a shop. Yeah, I see your eyes like. So it's not like we're watching you, but the consumer behaviors on certain brands, products, and so on is monitored through the light. So that's also something that is being used extensively.
Oh, that's unbelievable. So yeah, absolutely, we'll share separately some videos because I'm sure that the audience will be curious. Now, bringing it back to the topic of supply chain in 2023, another year of different problems and challenges, and for sure sleepless nights in supply chain. I guess the common question that we got: what keeps you up at night, Alexandre? What are some of the main challenges that you foresee within Signify, and how your network and your supply chains are organized, and what you want to do for 2023?
Sure. Look, we have one word for this year, no surprise, agility, but we have three types. We have market agility, decision agility, and execution agility. So market agility, why? Because there's a lot of unknown ahead of us still. It's been volatile in the last few years. It will remain. So we need to be ready to capture the growth on sustainability. You've seen maybe the $1 trillion program in the US, the $1 trillion program in Europe. China is also going to move massively. So money is there. We have what it takes to grow, meaning we have the technology, we have the response to sustainability challenges that companies have. We are there. We have the solutions. It's for us to capture it. So first of all, there's a top-line customer-centric approach. We need to be agile to capture that growth. Then there is an element of decision agility. It means that there will be unknown. There will be things where we need to be sharper, faster, to decide in this chaotic environment. And that's not up for everyone. You have people hiding, or people not having the guts, or not having the courage. It's difficult sometimes when you face adversity to make the right call. So decision agility means decision faster and sharper. And then obviously after it's execution. So execution agility means bringing all of the teams to make it happen, removing barriers, reporting lines. When there's a purpose to go after, when the decision is taken, you need to go. And sometimes organizations are very slow to react. So that's the theme that we are on. I have to say I'm extremely proud of how the team reacted in the last 2 years. It's been tough. It's been burning a lot of us in terms of patience. It has tested us a lot. And the way a lot of the teams have reacted is amazing. So, the good news is that it's past. The bad news is that it might continue. And that's why the word agility is there. We just had the big strategic meetings at Signify, and it's the theme.
And yeah, it's going to continue for sure. And
does it resonate? Yeah,
absolutely. Great theme. I guess I'll drill on a particular topic that I hear a lot of chief operations officers, CSCOs, CEOs coming up more and more, which is geopolitics, and how, let's say, the different spheres of influence are being reshaped. You talked also about scope 3. You talked about you all have sourcing partners and tier 1, 2, 3, and so on. How is that impacting? Are you in a position where you have to reshape your networks, your providers? How are you thinking from that geopolitical risk aversion angle?
Big time. Look, you are as weak as your weakest link. So one supplier of your critical component can just kill your entire, maybe top products. Or so it was a realization before COVID that we needed to be more resilient, have more dual sourcing and so on. This has just accelerated. We have a program with our suppliers to, first of all, innovate. Then we have a balanced view at the performance. We are increasing the dual sourcing, of course, but we want to also remain, it's difficult. It's a dual messaging that you cannot invest in innovation, new technology, spending efforts with R&D with too many suppliers. So you need to have partnerships, co-develop with some, and it has tested a lot of relationships in the last 2 years. So I think you need to balance the risks. Most of those big suppliers, they're actually looking also at being positioned not just in one area of the world, but also have multiple platforms of development. So we are, of course, having in China, but we are having in Eastern Europe, in Mexico, Latin America. So we have the opportunity to rebalance our footprint, and we're doing it. It will take some time. Let's not dream it. Agility doesn't come just by declaring we are agile. I think the whole game is lead time right now, is being faster in responding to customer needs. So without losing cost, of course, in mind. Yeah, it's there's a total cost being considered, which is okay. I source here. I'm gaining agility, less inventory, but maybe it's going to be coming at a premium, a bit of a premium price. But cost is still a huge focus from a total cost of ownership perspective.
We've just recently concluded a questionnaire with about 200 executives, and cost this year came up very much strongly on number one.
Of course.
I mean, not necessarily that it's ever been maybe number two, but I mean, at least people would declare something else, even if it was not necessarily real. But this year it came very strongly. I don't know, it was 85% or 86% said that cost is by far the clear denominator of all the CEOs and boards. What are they looking at?
Yeah, look, let's be fair. A lot of, I don't want to say abuse, but a lot of inflation, fat came into the system over the last 2 years. We just pass on cost plus the whole chain, and we ended up with just eaten too much of and the consumer are not buying anymore. So there's a reversing effect now. Now we need to capture back what we lost. So everybody has to contribute.
Yes, absolutely. Now on the third big bucket of our discussion, which is my preferred one, actually, it's on the soft skills, human element side of supply chain. First, the question: hire for skills or hire for attitude? When is one preferred over the other, or what's your thoughts?
Come on, mon ami. This is like preferring your dad or your mother. No, look, les deux, mon capitaine, as we say. You need both. You need a bit both. You need, of course, skills. You need to continue professionalizing the function, having expertise. But I think more and more, it's true that the leaders of tomorrow will need to demonstrate an improved attitude. And I mentioned it a bit with that agility theme on decision agility, execution agility, being more dynamic in the approach, being ready for the unexpected, being ready to take not a straight line, but to be able to, not from an integrity perspective, obviously you follow the straight line from an integrity, but from an opportunistic perspective for the company. If there are opportunities for inventory, for cost, for top line, our supply chain expert will need to be not just the expert of the domain, but have the soft skills to decide and step up to the challenge, not to hide. We have too many people following the flow, of the waves, and we go one way, the bullwhip, and we follow the bullwhip. We sense the bullwhip, and we're going in the bullwhip, but there's nobody actually stopping the waves or having enough courage to take hard decisions. And that's from an attitude perspective, what I think, what is coming out. I'm going to list one, a firm, recruiting firm, Korn Ferry. I think you know Korn Ferry quite a bit. They have a leadership framework, you may know. And my key takeaways is 4 traits of leadership that you need in the future. You need courage, you need listening, you need optimism. And these are some of the traits that you need for the future of the leaders. Yeah. So that's what I'm looking at now when we hire people. What about you, Radu? Is that what do you see as the new?
Ultimately, from the position that we're in, which is a headhunting executive search firm, in complete fairness and honesty, it really depends on the client that we deal with. So I would say that I'm always of the perspective of giving options to people. So if a client, let's say that it's a more traditional industry, and they maybe think that the candidate needs to come from the same industry because they're so specific and their problems are so unique that nobody else understands, which tends to be a common theme, that all industries think that they're so specific that nobody else understands what they go through, which is completely not correct and accurate. But let's just bear with the example. So if the client is like that, more traditional in that particular sense of the word, we would always try to slip in the example of candidates, maybe 3 that are following the same profile, but 2 that are not, just to weed out, look, why don't you also open up a little bit of perspective and take a look at Y and Z. They're not exactly what you think you need, but maybe they'll bring some perspectives that you didn't even know you needed. And some people are open for that, some people are not. So I would say that I don't know if we have a hire for skills or hire for attitude, because we sit in the middle. We are the middle person. We always try to help the ultimate client, which is the recruitment the company.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
But we try to give options.
But I would say you need that spark, you need that dare to attitude, disrupting, innovating. You need that spark somewhere in the soft skills of the individual on top of the practice.
Absolutely. And at the same time, a quote that really, really pisses me off, if I'm to be honest, and it circulates every 2 weeks on the internet, and I don't think he even said it, but anyway, it's attributed to Simon Sinek, which is hire for attitude, not for skills. And I think that's swinging the other way too much, because if you're looking for a pilot, try hiring for attitude. If you're going to go on a heart surgeon, I mean, I'm giving extreme examples. Come on. I mean, it's not like skills are completely irrelevant. They are relevant. But of course, somebody with good skills and incredibly good attitude will beat somebody with excellent skills and toxic attitude any day of the week.
Exactly. That's why your question was les deux.
I'll remember the mother and the father. Right? That was a good analogy. Now, on the topic of supply chain organizations of the future, and I don't like to talk a lot about the future because actually in fairness, nobody knows. We can always claim that we have a crystal ball, but we don't. However, there's a McKinsey study. They put out the future supply chain organization, where they had the chief decision maker and the chief automation officer and so on. There's a lot of artificial intelligence, let's call it machine learning, because that's what it is for now. It's not really artificial intelligence. But how do you see this future org? Do you see some wacky type of combination of roles coming up that are perhaps not in the typical plan, make, source, deliver framework that most organizations have?
Yeah, so that's a broad question, but what you see in manufacturing already is we thought automation would replace completely human being. It's not the reality. You have a cobot, so collaborative bots that are helping you to do your tasks faster and better. But the bot has not replaced the human. So it's a bit the same with, if I take the analogy on planning, on demand planning, we have AI, we have science, we have some machine learning that are looking at trends, social media, what's going to come, what the consumer is likely to buy, and so on. At the end of the day, you need to translate that into SKU, into a plan, which type of shoes, or I mean, if I take the Nike Adidas example, but for lamps, it's the same. So it has limits. There's huge computing power, for sure, analytical power, but at the end, when you need to translate that into a machine that will drive production, you still need a very strong demand planner to do a bit of collaborative analytics. So the machine, the AI, will give you a direction, And then you need to have the business acumen, the sense to translate that into parts. So I still believe that we will be helped by AI and machine learning, but it's not going to replace completely, obviously, a human being. I still need very strong demand planners today.
Final question.
Yes, me.
For your, and I know you have a 19-year-old son.
Yes, good one.
Which will soon go into the workforce, right? So what is already your advice for him, as well as for many other young professionals that are stepping in their career? What has helped you the most in your career, Alexandre?
First of all, you will laugh. He has started space science studies. And
let me guess, he was in an elevator in London with somebody.
No, but I think this one is going to go until the end, and he's going to end up in Houston, but for the right reasons, he's going to go to the space industry. That's for sure. That's the first one. But look, my advice is, and I give it to him all the time. First of all, is to have a high ambition in life. Always look for what is potentially impossible, but it's like in archery, you need to throw your arch high. You need to aim high. Then you need rigor, meaning discipline in the execution to reach your goal. And then the foundation is your confidence, is what you build in the success over time. So I would say ambition, rigor, and confidence, building confidence, self-confidence in yourself, and the trust that you can gain from others would be my advice that I give to young talents that are sometimes not sure about themselves and what they are worth. But sometimes it's very good to give them that analogy. And if he's listening to this podcast, he will remember that I've done that drawing to him: ambition, rigor, and confidence.
And I'm sure that we will see him
in supply chain. No, maybe not.
In the space industry, no, in the space industry. Yes. But let me just, I'll cheat for a second. I said it's the last question, but I'll make how about supply chain? Not your son this time, but how about, would you tell somebody that graduates now, go into supply chain is a great career, and why would you say it's a great career? So I'm completely framing you in the direction that I want. I'm biased, as you can tell, but I'm assuming that you're also biased, so bear with me.
No, look, of course, I love this function. I discovered it. It's fun. It's the heart of a company. If you take the analogy of a body, supply chain is the heart of the body, and what goes into the body is supply chain stuff. So you sense the pulse of a company. If a company is doing well on top line, on revenue, on cash, on cost, it's because the supply chain is working well. So being the heart of a company, I tell you, is not up for everyone, but it's rewarding, like an amazing heart working in your body. So, and the body can run. And where some companies are athletes, some are going slowly or do not have a good hygiene. But I can tell you it's an amazing journey to be in that function.
Love it. Super. Well, on that note, Alexandre, thanks a lot for the time, for the great examples sharing and case studies. I'll share separately, as I promised, with the audience on LiFi, and keep making a dent at Signify.
Sounds good. Thanks, Radu, for being a catalyst of the function. Thanks a lot. See you soon.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. If you liked what you heard, be sure to go to www.elcotglobal.com and click the podcast button for all the show notes of the interview. Also, subscribe to our mailing list to get our latest updates first. If you're listening through a streaming platform like iTunes, Spotify, or Stitcher, we would appreciate a kind review. 5-star works best to keep us going and our production team happy. And of course, share it with your friends. I'm most active on LinkedIn, so do feel free to follow me. And if you have any suggestions on what to do and who to invite next, don't hesitate to drop me a note. And if you're looking to hire top executives in supply chain or transform your business, of course, contact us as well to find out how we can help.